Okay, good. A good kvittel to everybody. This is Hoshana Rabbah. We have a short daf today because we're halfway there, and it's a Agada to Gemara. Kuf Chaf Aleph Amid Aleph. In the middle of the page, it says Tanan Hasam. Mamish smack in the middle of the page, Tanan Hasam. Now, we had the connection between the following Gemara and our previous Gemara is that we said there was a mitzvah that was given to the avos that was not given to the children. What was that? The din of Hasavas Nachla, that the generation that received Eretz Yisrael, the women were not permitted to go ahead and marry out of the Shevet, because if they were, it would go ahead and take the Nachla away from one to the other. But that was Zeh Hadava. That Dava was only that door. Future generations not. Because of that Gemara, we're going to bring in the following Gemara. Now, the main Gemara over here is the Gemara, it's a Mishnah at the end of Tainus, right? But this is the short and abridged version. Tanan Hasam. Amr Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Lehoya Yomim Toivim Be Yisrael. They'll never, not Yom Toivim Yisrael, the Simcha of Yisrael, Ki Chamisha Asa Ba'av, like the 15th day of Av, Uki Yom Kippurim, and like Yom Kippur. Shebehen Benois Yisraelayim, those days on Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur, the B'nai Yisrael, B'nai Yisraelayim, Yitzos, they would go out, B'kli Lavan She'ulim, in white clothing that was borrowed, Shlo Levayish Es Mishain like, that you shouldn't go ahead and embarrass someone who doesn't have. In other words, no person would be wearing their own clothing, because they would borrow. Even a Bas Melech would borrow from Bas Kohen Gadol, they would borrow, it doesn't make a difference. So you wouldn't know who didn't have, who doesn't have. So everyone would be borrowed. That would go ahead and save the embarrassment. And the girls would go dance. The Martin Taina says that boys would come and they would tell them, don't look at beauty, don't look at this, don't look at this. They'll go the whole shot over there. Bishleim Yom Kippurim, Yom Slicha Umechila. Bishleim Yom Kippur, I could see what's the Simcha of Yom Kippur. It's a day of Slicha and Mechila. We always speak out that it's a happy day. It's a very serious day, but it's not. I remember as a kid, there was no distinction to me between Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. I fasted on both days, right? It was the same thing. If it the two totally opposites. Tisha B'Av is a day of mourning. Yom Kippur is a day of mamish happiness, a simcha rav, right? In addition, Yom Shinas L'Balucha Sachroinos, all the Rishonim go into town making the cheshbon of how on Yom Kippur came out that there was the day that Moshe Rabbeinu brought down the Luchas Shniyos. So we understand why Yom Kippur is such a happy time. El Chamisha Asa B'Av Maihi. What's the big simcha of the Chamisha Asa B'Av? The 15th day of Av. So now we're going to get a whole litany of reasons. And if you look at the Rashbam, guys, about 15 lines to the bottom, it says Yom Shehuta Shevet Binyamin. It's the day that Shevet Binyamin was mutter. Kol hanach amuroi lepligi. All these amuroyim, they're not arguing. Elamad gomer hai merabe, umad gomer hai merabe. In other words, all these reasons are true. All these reasons are true. Okay, so we're saying that there's no Yom Tovim like Yom Kippur and Chamisha Asavlav. So Yom Kippur, we understand why Yom Kippur was so special, unique. It got the luchas, it's Slich v'Kapara. But why? What was special about the 15th day of Av? Besides not saying Tachman, Baruch, it's always on top of that. The 15th day of Av.
Where are we in the?
You don't say Tachman. That's his version of the Gemara. Since you don't say Tachman, that's why Tu B'Av is so special. Anyway,
Leis, where are we holding, Leis?
On Kuf Chaf Aleph Amid Aleph. We're about 10 lines to the bottom. Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel. Says Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel, Yom Shehutru Shvatim Lavai Zeh B'Zeh. It's the day they permitted the Shvatim to marry into each other. So, guys, this is the reason why we brought this Gemara in. This is the whole reason. My Darish, how they darshan that the Shvatim could intermarry. Zehadava, this matter, all right, of the girls not marrying out of the Shevet. This matter should only be in this generation. So, as we said, were permitted, only they were permitted to marry out, even though they didn't. No one else in their generation could marry out, but future generations, they could. Now, with the Shidduch crisis being as it is, so the fact that they were permitted to expose themselves to marrying more people, not limiting to the Shevet, that was a reason for a big simcha. There's Ein Chodesh Tachas Hashemesh. In other words, the girls in Tu B'Av, they would go out, they would dance in the Mechalis, they would have. There was a tremendous simcha to get Yav Shidduchim. It's a big thing. It's a big Inyan. So you see over here the fact that they could marry with again out of their shevet, so they gave them more exposure to different people. So that was the big simcha. Rabbi Rav Chana Amar, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Rav Chana says, Rabbi Yochanan, Yom Shehuta Shev Ben Yamin Lovay B'Kal. This is the day that Shevet Ben Yamin was permitted to come into Kal. Okay, a little background over here. We discussed this in back basically not too long ago, and the idea of Pelegish Begiva. Pelegish Begiva. There was we went through the whole story. Anyway, there was a civil war in Shevet Ben Yamin. There was a meeting, and they swore that they were not going to let their kids marry into Ben Yamin. The kids wouldn't marry into Ben Yamin, right? They had to get there were 600 men left over. We just had the Gemara. We said that Shevet Ben Yamin, they must have had a lot of inheritance. There was no people left. 600 people left. They inherited all the chelik of Ben Yamin. So he brought in this matter. So they had made a shvua that none of their kids could marry in. So what's going to happen? So what happened was there was a heta. What was the heta? The chsiv, the ish Yisrael nishba b'mitzvah. They had the meeting in mitzvah and they all swore. Lamar ish mimenu, an ish from us. That's the key word. Mimenu from us. Layitem bitoy leBinyamin. Will not give his daughter to Binyamin in marriage. Leisha. My darish. Why was the darshan to permit it? Mimenu. From us we won't permit to get married into Shevet Binyamin. V'loy mibeneinu. But not from not our children. So our children would be able to. So the day that they permitted to marry into Shevet Binyamin, that was a reason of simcha. So that's a second reason. Rav Dimi bar Yosef, Rabbi Nachman, Yom Shekula ba Meisei Midbar. This is the day that Meisei Midbar down. Don't turn the page yet. Dam Amar. Okay, we'll see in a second. Okay. Now let's see Rashbam will be an interesting Rashbam. Shekula by Meisei Midbar. The Medrash Eicha, Yom Shebatel Ba HaChefer. It's the day that they were batel digging. The Amar of Levi, Kol Erev Tisha B'Av. Every Erev Tisha B'Av, Hayakruz Yoitza, they would go ahead and there would be a cruise, there would be an announcement, a public announcement. Hakol Yetze Lachbor Chafarim V'Yishana Behem. Everyone go dig your grave. Go dig a grave and sleep in it. Ubeshachris hakruz yaitza, and shachris of Tisha B'Av, yibdilu hachayim and amesim. The cruz went out. Let the live separate from the dead. Well, you bite kinai son. They would check. V'nimtzu. Listen to this. Tes vov elev upraitrois. 15,000 people upraitrois cheseirim. A little bit less. B'chol shana. A little bit less. So basically, a little less than 15,000 people died every single year in the Midbar. 40 years in the Midbar. 15 people died. The Kach Asu Mem Shana, they did this for 40 years. They did this for 40 years. Yoim L'Shana, Yoim L'Shana. Harimem Shana, B'Shana Achroina. Okay. B'Shana Achroina Asu Kain. The last year they did this. Batku Atzman, V'Nimsu Shleimin. The crews went out. Everyone who's, get up the living from the dead. And shine, everyone was alive. Amru, Shema Tu'inu b'cheshbin. Maybe we made a mistake in the cheshbin. In other words, it seems that they would all die in Tisha B'Av, right? So maybe they made a mistake. V'chein b'yud boy, v'chein b'yud aleph av, v'chein b'yud beis, v'chein b'yud gimel, v'chein b'yud daled. In other words, they didn't know for sure in the calendar. So, but every day, finally, Ades Male Sihira, till the full moon came out on 15th day of Av. Even this Male Sihira, since the moon was full, Amru, Bitla Kodesh Baruch Hu Gezeira, Kashem Aleinu. Kodesh Baruch Hu went ahead, and its Gezeira is over with. V'yasu Mishta v'Simcha v'Yantiv. So Tu B'Av is the day they all stopped dying, and that was a source of tremendous simcha in Klal Yisrael. So we have the days that the Shvatim were able to intermarry, the day that Shevet Ben Yamin was allowed back in, and the days that the Meisei Midbar died. And as Rashbam said, all of these are correct. Each one is bringing down from their Rebbe. Back in the Gemara, Dam Amar, Achlei Kol Meisei Midbar, until they would not finish dying Meisei Midbar Amid Beis, like Hayu Dibur Im Moshe. The Dibur was not with Moshe. Now, it doesn't mean that Hashem didn't speak to Moshe. It means he didn't speak to him like he used to. Let's see the Tach Rashbam. Like Hayu Dibur Im Moshe. Pe'al pe. Didn't go ahead and speak to him like when Moshe wanted to speak to him, pe'al pe. Kibat chila. Avon chutzruchu l'dibur. If Moshe had to speak, if Hashem had to speak to Moshe, going b'maisa the koirach, show you acha maisa hamaraglim. In other words, you could say the dibur was not with Moshe. How could that be? We know that the koirach happened after the meraglim, and we know Kodesh Baruch Hu told Moshe, he gave him instructions what to do, right? So perhaps it wasn't Hashem that spoke. Maybe it was a malach or the urim v'tumim. Inami or else. In other words, he did speak to him only when it was necessary. Before the Ched and Meraglim, Moshe can go call up a Kodesh Baruch Hu anytime he wanted to. That did not take place after the Ched and Meraglim. But upon necessity, a Kodesh Baruch Hu would converse with Moshe. Shenemar, back in the Gemara, right? Let me make sure. Okay, I have to always read the pasuk correctly. And then it says, and Hashem spoke to me. So you see that when the people died, then Ula says, Yom Shebitl Ba Yeshua Hoshea ben Allah Pardasios. It was the day that Hoshea ben Allah, one of the last king of the 10 Shvatim, he went ahead and he was mevatel the Pardasios that Shahoshev Yeravam Al Drachim Shlayali Yisrael L'Regel. So there's one of the unfortunate incidents in history of Klal Yisrael was the dividing of the Melucha, right? Bimei Yeravam. What happened was Rechavam was the son of Shloima, and Yeravam ben Nevat, he went ahead and he went up north and he established the 10 Shvatim as a Malachei as Yisrael. And now we had two Malachim. We had Malachei Yehuda, Chavam, and Malachei Yisrael, Yeravam. And so it was. He didn't want people to be oil regel because that would that was in the chelik of Yehuda, it was chelik and Binyamin, that based on Mikdash, and he wanted people to stay with him, and he was Ovid Avodah Zarah, so he set up 2 golden calves in Don. He set up 2 golden calves, and he set up sentries to not allow people to be oil regel. These sentries are called Pardasios, these guards. So Hoshea, who was no tzaddik at all, he went ahead and he was mevatel those Pardasios to allow the people to be oil regel. So that day, the day that Shahoshev Yeravam Al Hadrachim Shelo Yalu Yisrael Regel. So that was another reason for what? For Tu B'Av. So we have multiple reasons of Tu B'Av. Either they mevatel the Gezerah, they mevatel the mitzvah of not intermarrying, or B'Shev Binyamin, or the Mesei Midbar, or the day that what they and the Simcha came back to Moshe Rabbeinu to talk, which is a big Simcha that Moshe was able to converse with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and also the day that people be a little regel from the north. Rav Masda says, Yom Shen Nasnu Haruge Beit Al-Kfura. It was the day that Haruge Beit Al-Kfura. Now you see, it's like it's a special day, fellas. All these things that transpired through history. It wasn't pshat. They made Tu B'Av mamish right away. I guess the first thing made it is as a result of they were able to intermarry, and then later on in history, you had the Maisa of Plegesh Begiva. And then later on the Maisa with Yeravam, things, but it all happened this day. Like we say on Tisha B'Av, right? Like a lot of bad things happen on Tisha B'Av, correct? We said that the last thing, the bad thing that happened on Tisha B'Av was the World War I broke out on Tisha B'Av because they assassinated the Archduke. So you say throughout history that this was a day that's of mourning. So this was a day of Simcha. And throughout history, positive, great things are happening on this day of Tu B'Av. So much so that we don't say Tachlan, right? So we have again. So this day Haruge Beitar. What was Haruge Beitar? That was the rebellion of Bar Kokhba, Bar Kokhba, that took place after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Eretz Yisrael was still inhabited by the Jews. The Jews did not go into Golus like they did in Bayis Rishon, and they rebelled. It was a rebellion, and we saw that Rabbi, the great Rabbi Akiva felt that Bar Kokhba was what? Was Mashiach. He felt he was Mashiach, right? And then, unfortunately, he killed his uncle. So it wasn't a good ending. And the Romans, they went ahead and they massacred Beitar. And what happened? They left the bodies out to rot. The Amar Rav Masna Oisei Ayoin Shenasna Ruge Beitar L'Kfura. That day that they were permitted to bury the people of Beitar. You're talking about, I don't know how many people, guys, crazy amount, and hundreds of thousands. Tiknu biyavne hatoiva meitiv. The bracha of in benching that we say for bracha hatoiva meitiv, that was metukin in Yavne, right? Hatoiv, what was the good? Shlei yasrichu, and this happened that the bodies didn't putrefy. The hameitiv shenasan l'kfura, and what was the hatava, that they were able to be buried, and this happened on Tu B'Av. Rabbi Yosef Namitravayu Yom Shepoiskin Boy Melichreis Eitzim Lemaracha. That's the day they stopped putting wood Lemaracha. What's going on over here? Tanya Rabbi Eliezer God Loimer Kima Shegia Chamisha Asa B'Av. Once you reach the 15th day of the sun, the strength of the sun has reached its apex. Tashas Koicha Shel Chama, and now begins to weaken. V'Hoya Korsim Eitzim Lemaracha, and they wouldn't go ahead and cut eitzim from the maracha, because the eitzim now, they would not be totally dry, they would cause a lot of smoke, and also it was subject now with a certain moisture in them for toilam, for worms being in them, and therefore this is the day. Now, why is it a simcha? We'll see in a second. Rav Menashe v'kori le'yom tov ha'magal, they called it the day of what? Of the tov ha'magal, the day of the breaking of the axe, because they wouldn't cut it anymore. Mikan ve'elech, from this day and onwards, Dim Moisif, a person now would have more time to learn Torah at night. Yosef would get add on to his Olam Haba. Sheina Moisif, he doesn't learn Yosef. He'll be Yosef. He'll be gathered in. My Yosef, what do you mean he'll be gathered in? Rabbi Yosef, Tikparena Ime. His mother will bury him. He'll only live to Chatziyama. So what's Pshat? What's the great simcha associated with the cutting of the wood? Let's see the Rashba. Says the Rashba. Minisim v'ad tesvav b'av hayakorsim eitzim litzorach hamaracha. From Nisan to the 15th day of, they would cut eitzim for the purpose of the pyre in the Beis Hamikdash l'chal hashana for the whole year. Mikan ve'elach, from that day and onwards, tashis koiche hachama, the chama would be weakened. V'yesh be'eitzim lachluchis, and the eitzim would have moisture. Umalim ashan, and therefore, as a result, that when they would put it on the mizbeach, it would go ahead and cause too much smoke. V'miyagdel toilas, or it would go ahead and grow worms. Uchedamina b'medrash Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha b'shem Rabbi Yossi Omer shavu kol zman ketzitzel mizbeach shekol eitz shenimtza by tolas pasel mizbeach v'choleit shu niktzas ein oisa ma'achulos v'oisa hayoim, that day pasha pasku, that they stopped cutting, hayu smeichim, they were very happy, v'shaboisa hayoim hayu mashlimim mitzvah gedolah kesais, because that day they finished this great mitzvah. There's this great mitzvah of cutting wood for the mizbeach, caused tremendous simcha. That's the pshat of the Rashbam. Let's see Rabbeinu Gershom, guys, on the right side. Rabbeinu Gershom. My Gemara is on the right side. Yom shepasuk melichres eitzim l'maracha, ulefi shah shahayu oiskim lichres eitzim l'maracha, hayu misvatlim b'talmud Torah. Since they were busy cutting wood, they were mevatel, they couldn't learn. Avaloisa yoim pasku. That day they stopped what? They stopped cutting the wood. Vasu yomtiv. They would now make a yontif. You know why? Shemikan be'elech hayu oiskim b'Torah. So that day and onwards, they could be oisik in Torah. You hear this, guys? What we take for granted, the ability to be oisik b'Torah. They were so busy with this wood. The simcha was, now they don't have to be busy with the wood, and they can be oisik b'Torah. That's the Rabbeinu Gershom. So according to the Rasham, it's a great mitzvah. According to Rabbeinu Gershom, Mi'ara Goyla, it's that fact. Now the simcha is they can be oisik b'Torah, which is very appropriate for Simchas Torah, guys, right? Very appropriate today for Simchas Torah. This Rabbeinu Gershom. Too bad Rav Avi's not here to see this, right? Geschmack. Now it can be oisik b'Torah. Okay. Says the Gemara Vayt. Tan Rabbanan. Shiva kiplu es kala olam kulai. There were 7 people literally who folded up the whole world. In other words, 7 generations from the beginning in time to the present. Right? Who are they? Misushelach ra Adam, Misushelach so Adam, Shem ra Misushelach, Yaakov ra Shem, Amram ra es Yaakov, Achia Shiloni ra es Amram, Eliyahu ra es Achia Shiloni, Vedayin Kayim, and he's still alive. Eliyahu is still alive. So Mamela, 7 people from the beginning of time till now. Says the Gemara, Achia Shiloni ra es Amram, Baksiv leinoisa mihem ish. He and Kalev ben Yefuna should be none. So how could you say that? What? How's it possible that Achia could go ahead and he saw Amram, but how's it possible then? What? Okay, the kasha isn't that he saw Amram, fellas. The kasha is if he did see Amram, how is Achia Shiloni around to be a Navi, be Meir Rav and Ben Nevat? Because if he saw Amram, that means he left Eretz Yisrael, he left Mitzrayim. But the only people who left Mitzrayim who were alive were Kalev and Yeshua. That's the kasha. Not a kasha that he saw Amram. Of course, seeing Amram is not the deal. We know Achia Shiloni was Nisnave, be Meir Ravam. That's be Meir Shloima. But I mean, not Shlomo, Rechavim, his son. So Fred the Gemara, Achia Shilani Royas Amram, Vaksiv, Mehem, there was no one left over. Ishkim Kalev ben Yefunav Yeshua be none. So Mamela, if he is being Nisnave, be May a Yeravam, then it must be he did not see Amram. Right? Let's phrase it the other way. They must Amram like Nigzer Gezerah al Shifte Shel Levi. The Gzeira was not on Shevet Levi. So in other words, Achia was a Levi, so therefore he could survive the Mesei Midbar. The Chsiv, but Midbar Azeh Yiblu Pikreichem, in this Midbar will fall your corpses, V'chol Pikudechem, V'chol Misparchem, Ben Esm Shana V'mala. In other words, anyone who's counted from 20 will die in the Midbar. Misha Pekuda Mi Ben Esm, those who are counted from 20 will die in the Midbar. Yotza Shifta Shal Levi, this will exclude Shevet Levi, who's counted from 30 days old, right? They counted as a baby from 30 days. So therefore, it would explain how Achia could be misnave b'mei Yeravam, yet have been from the Yitzim Mitzrayim and have seen Amram. Fred the Gemara, that no other Shevet besides Levi left Mitzrayim and made it into Eretz Yisrael. But Tanya, it says, Yoel ben Menashe, Umachir ben Menashe, Noldu b'mei Yaakov, they were born b'mei Yaakov, and they didn't die until they entered Eretz Yisrael. Shenemar, Vayakum mehem anshe ha'ai, kishloishim v'shisha ish. Okay, the background over here is Bnei Yisrael destroy Yerichai. No one's supposed to take from the spoils of Yerichai. Achan takes an Aderesh Shino, he takes from the Babylonian belt that he found. They say, they go scout out Ai. It says the scouts, it's a piece of cake. 3,000 people will go ahead and they go and they lose. And it says they lost like what? They lost like 36 men, right? And who is it? The Tanya, Shloishim B'Shisha. It doesn't mean they lost 36 men. They lost a person who was equal to 36 men. Who is that person that was equal to 36 men? Right? So Shloishim B'Sheish Ish Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Amalei Rabbi Nechemya, Chinema Shloishim B'Shisha. Does it say 36? Like 36. Elazei Yoav ben Menashe, the person who died in the battle against Ai was Yoav ben Menashe, Sheshakal Keruba Shel Sanhedrin, who was equal to 36, which is Roiv of Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin 71, 36 is Roiv of 71. So why do you see that Yoav ben Menashe left Mitzrayim and he was obviously alive because he died in the battle against Ai? So you see that it wasn't just Shevet Levi that survived Mitzrayim and went out. We have other people besides Yeshua and Kalev. El Amrav Acha Yaakov loy nigza gzeira loy al pachas ben esrim loy al yesem ben shishim. It wasn't Gezer was not less than 20. Anyone was more than 60, and Yar was more than 60 because again he was born ben Yaakov. Loy al pachas ben esrim dechsiv ben esrim shana umayla from 20 and above. Loy al yesem ben shishim gamar umayla mayla may erchen. We learn out from Erchen. Erchen, a person's worth between 20 and 60 is the same. After 60, it's less, and after 20, it's different. So just like 20 and 60 are different, in Erchen, who are din le'inyan going into Eretz Yisrael, right? It was a different cheshbon. It was a different cheshbon. Look at Rashbam, guys. V'loyal yesemi ben shishim. 1, 2, 3, about 7 lines up from the bottom. But he nami da'chir Yisrael have, and according to this, Achia didn't have to be a Levi. He could have been a Yisrael. Hayroyas Amram, Hey Shonam. He could have seen Amram for what? For 5 years. Babilei ben Samech Aleph B'Tseis Mitzrayim. He was 61 when he left Mitzrayim. Since he was 61, which is more than 60, then he would survive the Gezerah of Mesei Midbar. Okay, so you could have seen Amram and survived. So according to the first pshat, he was from Levi. According to this pshat, he didn't have to be from Levi because we had other people surviving. As long as you're more than 60, you could have survived, right? Less than 20 and more than 60. Clearly, he wasn't less than 20. He was more than 60. So that, and where do you see that difference? You see it from Erchin, right? Mala Halam by Erchin, Yesim ben Shishim Kipachas ben Esrim. They're the same in the fact, not that it's the same amount of money, but it's a different amount of money than 20 to 60, which is 50 shkalim. 20 to 60 is 50. Above that is less. Below that is less, even though they're different, right? Afkan. So to over here, Yasim ben Shishim and Pachas ben Esrim. So to over here, it's less than 60 and it's more than 60 and less than 20. Okay, I guess we'll stop. I guess we could stop over here. You know what? Let's go on. I have time. Let's go on. Okay. The Gemara has the following question. Fred the Gemara, Iboilan, says the Gemara, Iboilahu, Eretz Yisrael, the Shvatim Iflug, Idilma Lekarfif Gava Iflug. Was Eretz Yisrael divided up 12 equal ways, and then among the different, within the Shevet, they would divide according to the amount of people, or no, it went according to the people. So, in other words, more people, when Karfif means the head, it went according to the amount of people. So every person got the same amount. According to, it was divided among the Shevet. So this one's got this Shevet, and then within the Shevet, they subdivided. Or no, each person got their chelik. We're going to paskin guys like what the first shot, like Eretz Yisrael was divided equally. Toshma, it says, Apia Goyrol, Techolik Nachlasoi, Bein Rav Lima'at. It says, according to the Goyrol, the Eretz should be divided, whether it's a lot or whether it's a little. Says Rashba, Toshma, Bein Rav Lima'at, Apia Goyri Techolik Aretz. It's divided through the Goyrol. Nachlasin Shal Yisrael, Sheyikach Kol Shevet V'Shevet, Mashiyitin Leha Goyrol. Whatever the Goyrol gave him, that's what the Shevet got. Bein Shohayam Agil Lechelik Meruba, Bein Shevet Sheyesh Ba Nashim Ma'at. Whether there were very few people in the Shevet, and therefore they would have gotten a larger portion. Now, since everyone got an equal amount, depending upon the population of that particular shevet, would decide how much you would get. If it was a shevet that was not so populated, each person would get more. If it's a shevet that was very populated, each person would get less. So when it says bein rav l'ma'at, what is bein rav l'ma'at? Whether you're going to get a lot or whether you're going to get a little. What does that mean? Whether there's a lot of people, and therefore you're going to get a little because it's divided equally. Within the shevet itself, it's the Eretz Yisrael is divided equally, so therefore you're going to get less. Or whether you're going to get a lot. Why are you going to get a lot? Because you got an equal size to everybody else, yet there's less people, so therefore you'll get more. The key in the Chol Shvatim loichim b'shava, says the Rashbam, since each shevet took equal amount, shevet hakotin shevet hagadol, nimtzu chelik b'nei shevet hakotin meruba mechelik shevet b'nei hagadol. So the fact that it says, fellas, al pi hagoyrel ticholik nachlaslei bein rav lema'at screams out to us that Eretz Yisrael is divided equally. If it was divided according to the amount of people, there's no rav lema'at. Each person got equally. It must have been Eretz Yisrael is divided in equal portions. Now, if Eretz Yisrael divided in equal portions, so let's say Shevet Binyamin had X amount of people, and Shevet Yehuda had X amount of people, the people in Yehuda would get less because there's more people in Yehuda than Binyamin, and the people in Binyamin would get more. Why? Because the area was the same, but the amount of people dividing up the area was different. So it's a raya that Eretz Yisrael was divided according to what? According to the Shvatim, not according to what? The people. For Oitanya, a seed in Eretz Yisrael, Mashiach sheticholik l'shloisha eseh shvatim, 13 shvatim. Shebetchilu l'neschalik el shnei masa shvatim. Initially, it was divided to 12 shvatim. Okay, this is a raya. Then again, it was divided according to shvatim. For neschal el bekesef, and it was only divided up with money. Again, we'll explain this much yontif. Shnemar bein rav lema'at. Good. So we have two rayas that what? We have two rayas that is divided upon the shvatim. Rabbi Yosef, what does it mean? What does it mean that it's divided up according to kesef? Rav Yehuda saw by Yehuda shava chamesh slaim begalo. The land in it, and by Yehuda was worth more. One land that could plant a saw, Pashtus was equal to 5 saw in Galo. Okay, we'll get a better explanation of Yantiv. And was divided up according to the Gairol. Okay, we'll see this Bes Hashem on Motzi Yantiv. Okay, Motzi Shabbos. So I wish everyone a good Yantiv.